I watched a Wendigo drag my friend away. It happened during a routine field op. We were in the woods for a couple weeks, practicing setting up and maintaining the defense. I shared a fighting hole with my roommate at the time, and leading up to this field op, we discovered a similar interest that we had: the paranormal. We would sit in our rooms for hours and just watch ghost hunting videos and deep dive into cryptid lore. One cryptid that stuck out to us, as it did for many people, is the Wendigo. We heard in some of the videos we watched that Wendigos can actually be manifested, and after a few days into the field op, we decided it would be funny to turn it into some kind of a joke. We started saying the word Wendigo any chance we could, even if it didn't make sense. We started saying it so much that people around us asked us why we kept bringing up Wendigos. We told them we heard if you mention one enough, it'll appear. Obviously, we all knew that was nonsense, and we're more just using it as a stupid game to pass the time. Kind of like that scene from Super Troopers, where they bet each other how many times they can say meow during a traffic stop. Didn't take long to get a few others on the game. We even had enough people in on it, and doing it often enough that the staff in O had to tell a few guys to cut it out, which got some laughs out of everyone that was playing the game. One night, I was pulling security and looking out into the empty forest through my MVGs, doing my best to fight off sleep. We knew at some point in this field op we were going to be attacked by one of our sister companies to test our abilities in the defense, and I did not want to be the one to nod off on the night that they came through. So needless to say, at this point, I hadn't got much good sleep, and the sleep deprivation was hitting me hard. That's the night I saw it for the first time. As I stood there looking out into the woods, I could have sworn I saw a pair of eyes peering around a tree, staring at me. At first, it wasn't much of a concern, because we were in the woods after all, and it should come as no surprise that sometimes when you're out there long enough, you start seeing some animals. Which is what I chalked it up to at first. However, it started to become a concern because after some time I noticed that these pair of eyes never stopped looking at me. My next thought was that it might be the other company finally coming to attack us. With that thought, I woke up my buddy and told him what I was seeing. He got up and put on his nods as well and looked out into the tree line. After a moment of scanning, he said he couldn't see anything. Even after pointing him to the proper line of sight, he still couldn't identify any eyes. He eventually took off his MVGs and said I was probably just seeing stuff. At that point, I believed him. I mean, I hadn't got much sleep, so sleep deprivation getting to me wasn't out of the question. I finished off that night and ignored the glowing dots in the distance. Throughout the next day, I told some of the people what I saw, and they all came to the same conclusion. I just needed some rest. So during the day, while we had some downtime, I decided I would use it to catch up on some sleep. When it came time that night for me to stand watch, I felt rested. I was actually quite surprised at how good I felt, and thought to myself that night's watch was going to be a breeze. As I stood there again that night and looked out into the tree line, I saw it. Those eyes. They were staring at me, except this time they weren't peering from around a tree. I could see the body attached to them. I immediately opened fire and started shooting blanks in its direction, thinking it was someone from the other company. When I did, the other people in their holes woke up and picked up their rifles and started firing as well. After a few seconds, I heard, "Cease fire!" come down the line and realized that the person I saw standing there just moments ago was gone. We must have scared him off, I thought. Pretty soon after that, my staff sergeant came around asking who started firing. I spoke up and said it was me. In the moment, I was confident and thought I had done the right thing, but he started to scold me and called me an idiot for shooting at nothing. I informed him that there was someone standing out there, and he said that no one else saw anyone. After he walked away, and everyone settled back in their holes, I realized that there was no attack. We would have seen a company-sized element retreating, and they for sure would have fired back, considering it was just blanks, and the purpose of their attack was to just cause chaos. After I realized that, I could feel those eyes staring at me again. I looked out into the tree line, and there it was. Standing there. Staring at me. I quickly looked at my buddy next to me and told him to throw his MVGs back on and look out into the woods. I told him where to look and expected him to see nothing just as he did the night before. Hell, I was hoping I was just nuts because this was getting terrifying. After he took a look, I heard him say, "What the hell is that?" As soon as he said that, an ear-piercing scream came from the direction of the figure in the woods. I looked over at it and saw it get on all fours and start charging at us. We started firing, but quickly remembered that we only had blanks. We weren't going to be able to do anything. I heard someone from the other hole scream, "What is that?" I looked to my left to see who said it. Before I knew it, I was struck in the head, knocking me over deeper into my hole. As soon as I had fallen, I heard my buddy let out a blood-curdling scream. I turned around, still on the floor of my hole, just in time to watch him being dragged out of the hole by this creature. He was kicking and screaming, begging for help. I reached for the knife that I had attached to my vest and went to slash at what was dragging him out of the hole, but by the time I was able to do that, the creature was just out of reach. I noticed that he was being held by the shoulder and the creature's mouth, still writhing in pain, kicking and screaming as he was being dragged into the darkness. I was stunned. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. I wanted to get out of my hole and help, but I couldn't make myself move. I just stood there and watched as my friend was dragged into the darkness. Soon after he was out of sight, the screaming stopped. Everyone was in shock. No one could believe what they just saw. After a few moments, people began speculating what that might have been and started to figure out how they were going to go and retrieve my buddy. As I sat there and listened to everyone, I realized what had happened. The legends were right. They can be summoned. It was a Wendigo.